Hey everyone, it's Liz here from the Nail Hub, and today we're going to continue our Gel Nail Fundamentals 2.0 by talking about nailments. This is a phrase that you might see throughout the industry, but it's also a phrase that I like because the word ailments of the nail, right, or phrase ailments of the nail can be shortened into nailments. These are infections or diseases of the actual nail. I'm going to be going through the most common ones that you'll come across, what causes them, how to prevent them, also how to treat some of the more simplistic ones, or if there are low-hanging ways that you can actually treat some of these infections. And I'll also tell you which ones should actually be addressed by a medical professional. So some of the pictures I'm going to be sharing today are a little medically graphic, nothing too crazy, we're not doing surgery here, but I at least wanted to give you guys a little bit of a heads up before I start sharing some of the images of common ailments. So let's talk about onycholysis or onycholysis. You might hear it pronounced either way. Onycholysis is when the nail plate separates from the nail bed. So this is when we get pockets in between the nail plate and the nail bed. It can be caused by blunt force trauma. It can be caused by damage. It can be caused by allergies. It can also be caused by infections. And we want to keep nails short when we have this separation. The biggest way that I see onycholysis happening with most people is their nail plate gets extremely thin from over-processing, over-filing, too much aggressive removal. Their nail plate gets exceedingly thin. When the nail plate gets very, very thin, it has a hard time of supporting any product on top of it, and it also has a really hard time staying attached to the nail bed. So the more damaged our nails are, the more likely it is we're going to have onycholysis as a symptom of that. So we want to keep our nails very short. We want to stop over-processing them. So we want to stop applying product and removing old product. We want to keep our nails as clean as humanly possible. Be very conscious of that because, again, if we have a pocket between our nail bed and our nail plate, depending on how deep that pocket is, dirt and debris, food, bacteria can get stuck in there, and it's very difficult to clean out. So we just want to be extra conscious of that. And we want to keep trimming the nail as it grows out. So the good news about onycholysis is most of the time it resolves on its own. As your nail plate grows out, it will start to reattach to the nail bed as long as there is no other trauma or force being put on it. So that's why we want to keep the nails short. Keep trimming them short as they grow out until the nail plate reattaches. So let's look at a picture of what onycholysis looks like. So you can see the pointer finger of this person is totally normal. This pointer finger over here, you can see the nice hyponychium is still attached. They have some free edge nail growth, but the nail plate and the nail bed look very healthy. And then we have some onycholysis here. This is where you can see that the separation, just like this free edge is not attached to the nail bed, we can easily see that this part of the nail plate and this part of the nail plate are not attached to the nail bed. Now, in this particular situation, the nail plate actually does look pretty healthy to me. I can see some natural shine. I can see that the ridges are still present, which shows me that this nail hasn't been filed within an inch of its life. Some of the reasons why this might be actually separating could be fungal infection. It could be an allergy to the product that was put on top. So sometimes when you see these nice, natural, healthy nail plates and they're still getting onycholysis, that can actually be an irritation to the skin under the nail plate, and the skin will retract and recede away from the nail plate instead of it being a situation where the nail plate is overly weak and can't hang on. So this nail looks like it's a little bit of a ski jump nail. It's starting to actually lift upwards, towards the camera, if you will. And you can see that you can see some attachment down here and down here, but I can already see that this is starting to detach, this kind of semi-colored area down in this area. And you can see how deep this onycholysis is. It goes 2/3 of the way up the nail bed. And this is a situation where you really want to be conscious of keeping these nails short. So what I would do is I would shorten this down as much as humanly possible, probably to about there, just like I would if I was shortening this as short as I possibly can without hurting the hyponychium. I want to actually keep this very short to keep this free edge and this free edge from pulling and tugging on the nail bed any more than it already is. You can also do things like if you're using your fingers a lot, or you're worried about having undue pressure on the nail plate, you can use band-aids or medical tape to kind of help support this nail bed and this nail plate and keep them together. So you can wrap a band-aid around the entire fingertip, keep that protected. But this is a situation where you're going to want to keep these very, very clean. And if you're worried about the potential for developing maybe a slight fungal infection, one of the best things that I love is you can soak your nails in a diluted vinegar solution. Vinegar really does help to keep the nail bed and the nail plate clean, and soaking really helps to get underneath and in between this separation. It'll help clean out any yuckiness that's in there. It's not extremely aggressive to the skin. And, unlike bleach, where it is going to be a little bit more aggressive, vinegar is a really nice natural thing that does help get rid of things like fungus. So, even just soaking your nails, keeping them moisturized, keeping them hydrated, keeping them short is going to help this onycholysis resolve. If it is also allergy based, you would definitely want to stop using whatever product that has been used. Since this nail has not had the same reaction, and I can see some residue of gel polish here, to me it seems like there's something else. It could be damage, blunt force trauma that's happening to only these two fingers. So here's where a little bit of the troubleshooting and reconnaissance work goes down with being a nail technician. We kind of have to problem solve, because if we see that this nail is perfectly fine, the same product has been applied, the same manicuring, same everything has been happening to this nail, why is this nail staying perfectly healthy and these two are not? So in this case, I would say that there's definitely something happening specifically to these two fingers. I don't see any inflammation in the skin. I don't see any irritation anywhere else except for the separation. So it could be something that just happened from, maybe someone fell and they went to, brace themselves, they ended up banging into their nails. Just even something like that can really create separation. So I would just shorten these way down, let them grow out, keep them moisturized and clean. And like I said, usually this onycholysis will resolve on its own. Chloronychia. So chloronychia is actually the technical term for pseudomonal bacteria infections. You might also hear it called greenies. This is when we have a green stain on our nail. Typically, this will be revealed once you start removing old products. Pseudomonas are actually a bacteria that are present throughout our environment. They can be found in the soil, they can be found on skin, they can be found on animals and humans. It's caused by wet, moist environments and usually comes from constant exposure to water, maybe detergents and soaps. It is something that likes these oxygen-free environments, although there are instances of it happening in open environments when there's, immunocompromised people involved. But typically this is something that comes with separation between the product that you have on your nail and the actual nail plate itself. Instead of onycholysis, where we have a pocket between the nail plate and the nail bed, when we have a pocket between the product and the nail plate, we can obviously also get bacteria trapped inside of that, and that is usually where Pseudomonas start to grow, okay? So you'll also hear them called greenies. It can become serious. So I wanted to reiterate this because I do see a lot of people saying, oh, greenies is no big deal. It actually can be a big deal. Although most cases of greenies will resolve very quickly, and there's something that you can sometimes attempt to treat on your own before seeking medical professionals, I will say that it can be a very serious infection if it goes unresolved. It sometimes can be confused with staph infections, but it's also really important to understand that this is a serious risk for people that are immunocompromised, people with diabetes that have circulation issues, elderly clients, anybody who has lower circulation and a lower ability to fight off infections, especially bacterial infections. Those people are going to be at higher risk of a simple pseudomonal infection turning into a very serious infection, okay? And this can also be commonly seen alongside onycholysis. So again, anytime we have a pocket where bacteria can get in there and start to hide and start to grow, that is usually when we have something like Pseudomonas appear. So how do we treat Chloronychia? How do we treat Pseudomonas? So one of the simplest ways to attempt to kill this bacteria is to do a 1:4 mix ratio of a diluted bleach or vinegar solution. Don't go mixing all kinds of crazy things together. Either bleach or vinegar will help to kill that bacteria, and it will help to prevent it from extending further. We should definitely remove all product on the nail because we do not want to have any ability for the bacteria to hide and fester. So we want to make sure that everything is exposed to the air, that it's clean and dry. Typically, Pseudomonas will die upon exposure to oxygen, and also the bleach and vinegar solution will help to kill that even further. So we definitely want to make sure that we bring this all out into the open. I also want to say that it's really important that you do not attempt to buff or file off the green stain. The green stain can actually permeate very deeply into your nail plate, and if you try to file off that green, oftentimes you will end up either filing all the way through your nail plate into your nail bed, or you will thin the nail plate to an extreme degree, and we want to make sure that our nail plate stays as healthy as possible as it grows out. The Pseudomonas will die, the stain will remain, but as the nail starts to grow out, you'll notice that the green discoloration will fade in intensity and it will grow out instead of spreading, okay? So if it stays in one area of your nail, and as your nail grows, it just stays in that one spot and it continues toward the free edge, you'll ultimately be able to clip off the green stain. It will go from a super dark green to a lighter green to sometimes a brownish color over time. It will fade more and more. And then any sign that this infection is spreading should immediately signal that you need to go to a medical professional and get this checked. If you tried to treat the Pseudomonas on your own with a simple bleach or vinegar solution, if you left the nail exposed to the air and you're seeing the green grow and get bigger on your nail plate, that is definitely a signal that you want to go to a medical professional and have someone look at this. It does spread extremely easily, so anything that has touched Pseudomonas should be disinfected or disposed of. So nail files and buffers should definitely never touch two people if one person had Pseudomonas. If you have metal tools like cuticle pushers, nippers, anything like that, you want to make sure that you actually disinfect those by scrubbing them down with hot soapy water, rinsing them, and putting them into a chemical disinfectant. That is really, really important to understand, especially in a salon setting. Pseudomonas is very transmissible, so we want to make sure that we keep it only on that one client. We throw away all of the stuff that we've used, wipes, table towels, nail files, buffers, anything disposable. Do not allow that to touch someone else. And also be very conscious of the fact that if it's touching your hands, it is also possible for you to contract Pseudomonas from touching dirty nails or dirty equipment. So here's what Chloronychia or Pseudomonas or Greenies looks like. You can see that this nail has a lot going on. So you'll notice that the darkest part of the Pseudomonal infection is right in here. And to me, what this looks like is it looks like that this person had some onycholysis, which is what I was saying about how usually the two are hand in hand. This allows for a pocket to form, and you can see that it looks like the darkest part of the green is over here. So to me, this means that this person had onycholysis. They had lifting between their nail plate and their nail bed, and Pseudomonal bacteria was able to get in there and start growing. And that green is actually an excretion from the bacteria. So the excretions from the bacteria are what actually create that green color. It is not fungus. It is not moss. It is not any of that stuff. It is actually an excretion from the bacteria causing that green stain. You can see that the green can vary in intensity. So out here we also have some green, but it's a little bit more yellow, a little bit more brown. Same thing over here. So usually the darkest area of the green is the one that tells me that that is where the infection started and has been there the longest, because all the excretions are concentrated in that area. And this nail, again, what I would do is I would trim down all the natural length as much as possible to really allow any vinegar or bleach solution to penetrate better, to make sure that all of this nail gets exposed to the air so that the bacteria can be killed off. And I would monitor this extremely closely. I would not put any product on this again. I would leave it like this. No nail polish, no gel polish, no acrylic, no nothing. If you want, you could put a nice dry bandage over it, but you do need to, again, make sure that that does not get wet. So if you want to camouflage the fact that you have a Pseudomonal infection, you can cover it up, with like a medical tape or a bandage. But again, you want to make sure that this does not remain wet. You want to make sure it's dry and exposed to oxygen. So first things first, I would trim off all of this natural length, and I would soak this nail in a 1:4 ratio bleach or vinegar solution, depending on what you have handy. I would wait and see for a couple days if this continues to grow and become more green, or if the green becomes more intense. If it does, then I would definitely recommend that this person go to a medical professional, or if it was myself, I would go to a medical professional. Some of the things I wanted to point out in this particular picture is you can see that this particular finger does not look very happy. The skin around the nail plate look extremely inflamed and puffy. Yes, there are some people that have a pronounced proximal fold, so this wall of skin sometimes is very pronounced, but you can see some scaling down here. You can see fissures in the actual skin on the corners. You can see some redness and some irritation here. You can also see some cuticle. To me, this nail looks like it has been absolutely overworked, that whoever is doing the manicuring for this particular finger is trying to push back the skin very aggressively. They might be over nipping. They might be doing really aggressive e-file manicuring. And you can see even here, like you can see some of the natural pigmentation of their skin back here has been removed. So to me, this area, because like right here, there isn't the actual natural skin pigmentation, to me it looks like this whole area has been debrided big time, which means it's been over exfoliated with bits or with buffers or with nail files. And this inflammation and redness to me looks like they could develop an actual infection in their eponychium as well, in their proximal nail fold. So this is something that's really important to also pay attention to, because if we have a bacterial infection here and we also have broken, irritated skin back here, it is so much more likely that bacteria can get underneath the skin, and now we have an actual infection in our finger and not just in our nail plate. So that's something to keep in mind. Paronychia is a bacterial infection of the skin around the nail plate. So just like I was saying in the previous picture, this person looks like they have a very irritated finger. It looks like the skin has been overworked. And to me, when you have already a pseudomonal bacteria infection in the nail plate, and then you've got broken skin, you've got that kind of irritated skin right there so close, paronychia is also an infection we can get that's in the skin. So this enters through cuts, wounds, broken skin, and treatment. I definitely recommend you go see a medical professional for this. Don't attempt to treat this on your own, especially if you are seeing any redness, pus, heat, throbbing sensations. Those are signs of very serious infections. So if you have any of those symptoms and things are not getting instantly better with just a Band-Aid and some, Neosporin or something, that is something that you definitely want to make sure you go to get a doctor to look at it, because infections can get out of control very quickly if you're not addressing the bacteria growth. So here is a picture of paronychia. This, you can see, is extremely red and inflamed. We have some visible pus, which is this yellowness here. This looks like some kind of injury happened back here. It looks like this person is probably a nail biter, although their free edge looks pretty smooth. But to me, this looks like someone who bites their nails. And so it might be something where they, got some mouth bacteria inside their skin. We have bacteria all over our bodies, in our mouths, everywhere. So if you are someone who has, you're prone to chewing on your skin, chewing on your nails, please realize that that opens you up to the risk of infection. We definitely also have a lot of bacteria on our hands from things that we touch, and a lot of bacteria can live underneath the free edge. We don't want that in our mouths either. So I know that, chewing your skin and nails is a very difficult habit to break, but I would encourage you all to really take this seriously. And again, also with tools or any kind of cuts or anything, if you get to a point where you have this kind of infection, you definitely want to go to the doctor. This is not something that any nail technician or person at home should be attempting to fix on their own. And you can see just all this redness and inflammation is very, very serious. Onychomycosis is the actual fungal infection of a nail plate. This is not to be confused with Pseudomonas. Pseudomonas is a bacterial infection, although it's green and you would think that that has something to do with moss on a forest floor. It must be fungus. It is not fungus. It is an excretion from a bacteria infection. So we want to understand what is a fungal infection. Onychomycosis is the actual presence of dermatophytes which cause a fungal infection, and they live on keratin. They actually consume the keratin of our nail plate, and that is how they live and frolic and and do well. Minor infections can sometimes be treated with things like tea tree oil or natural antifungals and antiseptics. I've heard about cinnamon oil, rosemary oil, peppermint oil being great for that if it's a very, very minor fungal infection. And tea tree oil, if you ask anyone from Australia, they will tell you all of the miracles that tea tree oil can do. But anytime we're working with essential oils, we want to be very cautious about allergies, things like that. So although these can be great for, a more natural alternative to medications to help heal things or prevent things like fungal infections, just always know that there's disclaimers on anything, and we want to be very cognizant of the possibility for allergies or overuse. Fungal creams can also be effective, but also the more you use fungal creams, sometimes fungi can get resistant to fungal medications. For severe or prolonged infections, medical professionals will often prescribe an actual medication that you take that will help fight the fungal infection from the inside out. So I've heard of people that have such severe fungal infections in their toenails, for example, that they actually need to take an oral medication to help fight that infection from the inside of their bodies and push that out. So some of those are that severe that you need to actually have a medical professional look at these. And whenever you are in doubt, whenever something simple is not working for you, I always recommend you go talk to a doctor. So here's a picture of onychomycosis. You can see that this looks very different than the previous pictures that I showed you. And this is why I think people need to truly understand the difference between Pseudomonas and actual fungi. Remember, the fungi that create nail fungus infections actually eat our nail keratin, okay? So that is why in this picture, you'll see that these nails actually look like they are being eaten by something. They're very dry and crumbly looking, they're yellow, and you can see that even the nail plate up here is not growing properly, and there's discoloration. So this is a perfect example of what fungus will look like when it's a very advanced infection. Oftentimes the skin will also be super scaly underneath. And the other thing that I have found is, especially on toes, once you get a very severe nail fungus infection going, you will ultimately have separation of the nail bed and the nail plate. The fungus is able to even get up there more. So you can see, like back in here, you can see that there appears to be some separation happening. Definitely this finger down here looks like it's got a lot of separation. So if you have a client come to you, or if you yourself have, a toe that looks like this, maybe you even just have one. It can happen on fingers and toes, but sometimes it'll happen just on one nail, and it won't even happen on the other ones. Sometimes you'll let things go and it'll get worse and worse and worse. Sometimes clients come to the salon and they don't even understand what's happening with their nails. Maybe they've had nails that look like this for a really long time and no other salon has actually told them what's going on and how serious it is. So I definitely recommend that if you have a client that comes to you that has nails that look like this, do not work on these nails. Do not try to just take off the part that looks gross. I know it's awkward to have those kinds of conversations sometimes, but it's really important to understand that we want to always do the best for our clients, and by being a responsible professional and telling them when they need to seek medical attention, that is part of the responsibility of being an actual working nail professional, okay? And if you're a DIYer at home, and you're experiencing something like this, also go seek medical attention. This is something that requires more than just a salon visit. So what are some of the other ailments that we might come across? Well, there's definitely things that aren't necessarily dangerous, but they are what I would call kind of defects of the nail. So Beau's lines is an example. These are horizontal ridges in the nails. They're not dangerous per se, but they definitely can cause some unsightly symptoms. They are usually caused by trauma to the matrix. So if you remember from my anatomy video, I was talking about where our nail plate actually forms, which is in the matrix inside of our finger. If we have blunt force trauma to the matrix, oftentimes that will be visible as the nail grows out. So you'll sometimes see Beau's lines, also diabetes, vascular diseases, illnesses such as high fever, scarlet fever, measles, mumps, and pneumonia, and also sometimes medication changes. and dietary changes can also cause Beau's lines. I often also see Beau's lines with people that have gone through things like chemotherapy, where, you know, again, you've got so much going on in your body. Our body is forming our actual nail plates. And so any drastic changes in that area during that time, it's almost like we have a little stamp on the timeline of our nail plate that you will be able to see once it starts to grow out. Pterygium is another thing that a lot of people get confused about. I've heard people refer to the proximal nail fold or the cuticle on the nail plate as pterygium. And I've even seen tools called pterygium stones. You might have seen some of those. You might have heard other educators talk about pterygium. Pterygium has nothing to do with healthy nails and cuticle and proximal nail folds, or even stretched proximal nail folds like I showed you in my last video. Pterygium is actually when the proximal nail fold grows into the nail plate and causes a splitting of the nail plate. And usually this is caused by severe physical trauma to the nail matrix, or it can also be caused just by a birth defect or an issue in that area where the skin just didn't properly form around the nail plate and it never quite grew the right way. Again, neither one of these are really dangerous. They're not infections. They're not something that, you know, really, I think you need to seek medical attention for, but it is something just to be aware of. Okay, so on the left, we have Beau's lines. So you'll see that the nail plate looks healthy other than just this one line going across the nail plate. And you can see that it kind of dips down. You can see the reflection here, that it's got, you know, a hump here, and then it dips down into a valley, and then it goes back up. But it looks like up here, the nail plate is growing perfectly fine. I see some natural ridges, which those are very normal. This client, I can tell just by the wrinkling of their skin and the natural ridges in their nail plate that they are probably older. There's nothing wrong with ridges. They naturally get stronger as we get older. But what it looks like to me is that this person went through something very specific at about the same amount of time. You can see it across all of the nails, even the pinky over here, you can see it peeking out. So this to me looks like maybe 8 weeks ago, this person went through something very specific. So remember, I told you that a nail plate usually takes about 3 to 4 months to completely grow. So the fact that this is just past the halfway mark means to me, this is about 8 to 10 weeks ago. There was some actual change to maybe the medication that this person was taking. Maybe they went through chemotherapy. It doesn't look like blunt force trauma to me, just because it's on all 4 fingers very evenly and in the same spot. So if this was just on one finger, it could be something where this, you know, maybe they slammed their finger in a door, and as the nail plate grew out, you know, the matrix had just gone through a little bit of a smash by the, you know, when it was trying to develop the actual nail plate. But to me, this looks like some kind of actual medication or dietary change or something big like that, like a chemotherapy or something that they went through. And so they've got these Beau's lines that are about maybe 10 weeks old. You know, if we were talking about back here, maybe even closer to 12 if we're talking all the way back in the matrix. And then on here, we also have a different type of Beau's line. This is a vertical kind of looking one. I see these very frequently with people that are prone to picking or rubbing their cuticle area. So again, if you have kind of a nervous tick, and you can see even a piece of skin right here is missing, this to me looks like someone who repeatedly rubs or bites or picks at this area of their finger. You can see that there's barely any skin here. It's very dry and crusty. So this to me looks like someone who's constantly chewing on their finger. This kind of skin is usually evidence of where someone's constantly getting their finger wet and then it dries out really badly. You can see even how dry their skin is down here. But the fact that there's skin missing right here and there's kind of new skin exposed, and that this is constantly happening all the way down. It's not just like this where it was one thing that happened and then started to grow out. This to me shows that there is more permanent damage to the matrix happening. And I do see these a lot of times on thumbs where people are rubbing as a kind of a nervous tick. They're rubbing this area of their finger, or they're chewing the skin, or they're constantly doing something and irritating this area where the nail plate is being formed. Sometimes this can also become permanent if you do it too much. And even if you stop the actual nervous tick, it is something that can permanently change the way that your nail plate grows. Again, there's nothing dangerous about this nail plate. There's nothing to fix here. You can absolutely prep this nail and put product over it. I've had lots of clients where they permanently damage their finger. It could be something that they, hey, it's not a nervous tick. They just slammed their finger when they were young and their nail plate never grew the same way again. There's absolutely nothing wrong. You can put product over this, but it is going to add a couple challenges because we don't want to try and remove all of this texture because again, we can actually end up filing through. Same thing with ridges. We don't want to try and make that nail perfectly smooth because we can ultimately end up thinning the nail plate way too much. You can also see that the nail is also kind of thinner in this area. Same thing, usually in the ridge, it's kind of a valley. So we don't want to be causing any undue trauma to the nail or thinning out the nail plate. And also it adds a few challenges because if you're trying to remove, like, let's say nail polish, sometimes color will get stuck in these little fine ridges, but it's not a big deal. Just be aware of it. And what I would recommend for this person is to definitely, again, I can see some inflammation here. Try and stop attacking this area of their finger. Recommend that they maybe rub lotion or cuticle oil into their nails if they're feeling a little bit, of a nervous tick coming on, and really try and moisturize because it does look like the nail plate is trying to grow normally back here. But it is one of those things, if the behavior stops, then usually the nail sometimes will be able to resolve. So let's look at Pterygium. So this is why when people say, oh, it's, cuticle is Pterygium, or the proximal nail fold is Pterygium, or we see tools that are called Pterygium stones or Pterygium pushers, this is definitely something that needs to be very clear to everyone that this is actually what Pterygium looks like. It's a total defect of the way that the skin grows into the nail plate. This isn't necessarily dangerous. It's something that's obviously going to make it very difficult to work on a nail like this. And it's not something that can easily be resolved with any type of tip or trick. I have heard of people getting this surgically taken care of, but a lot of times with stuff like this, if it's not hurting the person, why go through all of that heartache of trying to get this surgically repaired? Same thing I've seen sometimes where there's actually kind of like two nails that grow out of the same area. And this is just, it's definitely just one of those things that is special to that particular person. There's nothing you can really do about it. And I just wanted to show you what true Pterygium actually is, because it has nothing to do with cuticle or with the proximal nail fold in a healthy way. This is a total special thing that is kind of a skin defect where the skin creates this split in the nail plate and can sometimes even cause almost two nail plates to start growing. All right, so let's talk a little bit about prevention. I am going to be doing a specific video. Once we get into tools, I'll be showing you how to actually properly sanitize and disinfect tools and best practices for that, because whether or not you're working in a salon or you're doing your own nails at home, it is very important to understand that there are bacteria and viruses that we can come across that can lead to serious infections. And our fun hobby or our, joy of bringing beauty to our clientele can turn sour if we're not being serious about these types of things. So we definitely want to make sure that we remove and to the extent possible kill bacteria and viruses. This is especially important on our hands. So we want to make sure that we're washing our hands before services with hot soapy water and scrub under and around the nail plate. Scrub brushes are great for that, to really try and get all of that dirt and debris out from underneath our nails. This is especially important with clients, not to get super gross, but when you work in the industry for a while, you will realize that clients sometimes don't even understand how dirty their hands and their nails are. And there are lots of gross stories about what clients may or may not have underneath the free edge of their nail when you start to work on them. So always teach your clients how to properly wash their hands. Thankfully, after going through, one of the benefits, I guess you could say, of what we learned from the pandemic with the COVID pandemic is how important hand washing is. I think a lot of us had put hand washing on the back burner before we went through the pandemic. And so, although COVID was not something that we ever want to repeat, I do think that one of the positives that came out of it was that I think a lot of us are way more conscious about washing our hands and keeping our hands clean. So definitely double down on that when you're going to be doing nail services. So you as the service provider, make sure you're washing your hands in between clients. And you as the person who's going to be getting the service done, make sure you are washing your nails and hands as well. And same thing, even at home, make sure you wash and scrub your nails before you start to work on them. It really helps to eliminate all of that bacteria before we start working with product. Again, we want to keep tools clean and dry. I'll be going over that in more detail. And all surfaces should be cleaned before and after. So definitely in a salon setting, you want to be wiping down your table, your nail mats, anything, your lamp, anything like that. I always try to make sure that all of my equipment is as clean as humanly possible. Same thing if you're doing it at home, wipe down the area that you're going to be working on, or use a nice fresh paper towel or a table towel, something like that. Porous, reusable products. So anything that is porous, like nail files, buffers, any type of, like those, you might see them referred to as Pterygium stones, but they are not Pterygium. They're not related to Pterygium. Anything that has a porous look to it, like pumice stones, should actually be disposed of after they are used on each client. We don't want to be using those things across clients, and they need to be stored in a clean, dry area. Bacteria love to grow in oxygen-free, moist environments, so we definitely don't want to be putting our tools in things like Ziploc bags or in closed plastic Tupperwares or anything like that. Even if you're storing your tools for yourself in between services, let's say you're going to do your nails now, you're not going to throw away your nail file because you're going to use it again on yourself. You want to make sure that those objects stay in a clean, dry, exposed to the air place, not in sealed pouches or in sealed containers. And if you cut yourself, or if you've got a contaminated, like let's say one of your toenails has a fungal infection right now, you want to use your tools on that nail last, and you don't want to be using those across all of your healthy nails either. This also goes for clients. So if you do a quick review of the health of the person's nails, you determine that they might have a slight pseudomonal or fungal infection on one of their nails, but all of the other nails are fine. Usually what I recommend is you do all of the other nails and then you do that nail last, and then you throw that nail file away. That way you do the contaminated fingers last, or toes for that matter. Be gentle with your nails and skin. Just like I showed you in some of the previous pictures, it's so easy to overwork our nails and our skin. And when we have broken, inflamed, irritated skin, and when we're breaking those seals around our nail plate, it makes it that much easier for bacteria to get in there and to start to cause problems. So just keep in mind that yes, there are specific techniques we need to use to make our nail plate ideal for product application, but we also want to treat our nails and skin in a very gentle manner. They are very susceptible to being overworked, and it's very easy to cut ourselves or cut others or to break skin. So we want to just be very cognizant of that. And I also highly recommend, and again, I know how difficult it is to break long-standing habits. Chewing and biting nails and skin is a very, very difficult habit to break. But I really want to encourage all of you to stop doing that, because it is something that can lend itself to very serious infections. It damages the skin, it damages the nail plate. Some of those issues can actually become permanent. We don't want to be putting mouth bacteria on our nails. We don't want to be putting bacteria from or viruses from our hands into our mouths. We want to make sure that we stay healthy and happy. So that is something that is an easy fix, is to really keep those things away from each other, and also to keep stuff clean. And also, if you are a nail technician that is over cutting, over processing, over e-filing, all of those things, I really, if you know that you've been heavy-handed, I really want you to stop what you're doing, practice more, really be more gentle and cognizant of what you're doing, because it is so easy to damage things. And we really need to be more conscientious as an industry of what we should be trimming, what we should be doing, how to get nice looking results without the negative consequences of overworking our clients' skin and nails. With tool care, again, I will get into this in more detail when we go through how to clean tools, but there's a few general rules about prevention that I just wanted to put that out there before we get into the actual nitty-gritty of it. Like I said, do not store tools or any implements. So that's, again, if you're going to be reusing a nail file, even on the same client or even on yourself, do not store them in airtight containers like plastic bags, pouches, Tupperwares, anything like that. If you've got a Tupperware container or if you have some of those nail boxes, make sure that there are some air holes on them so that you can keep those things exposed to the air, and make sure that they are absolutely dry. Especially if you live in a humid part of the world, this becomes even more important. So I want to just put that out there, that that is a best practice for storage. Create a process and a habit. So the best thing that we can do is create a habit on how we clean our tools and how frequently we do it. So for example, if you're working in a salon, you could easily buy enough tools that you're able to get through a whole day of appointments. So let's say you work on 7 people a day or 6 people a day, have 6 or 7 sets of tools, maybe even one extra one, so that in case you drop a nipper or you drop some bits or something like that throughout the day, you don't have to actually be trying to make time to clean things in between. So you can start your day with a full set of fresh tools. You can get through a whole day of appointments. And then after you're done, you can clean all of those things at the very end of the day and have them ready for tomorrow. Especially because if we are actually scrubbing things, washing things, rinsing things, and then putting them in an actual disinfectant and then having them rinsed and dry again, or even if you are autoclaving or any of those extra steps, it does take time to do that. So that's why I recommend having a whole set of tools for a whole day of clients. And if you are doing this at home, have a good process and habit of making sure that your tools are washed and cleaned and stored properly so that you can enjoy your nail care and you're not continually using dirty tools on yourself. Physical cleaning is so important, and I'll show you in a future video how to actually physically clean your tools. It's not just about spritzing things with some rubbing alcohol. It's not just about dunking things in a disinfectant. We actually have to physically remove all the dirt and debris and help eliminate as much bacteria and viruses from the surfaces before putting things into a disinfectant or even before we autoclave our tools. So physical cleaning is actually probably more important of a step than what comes after it with chemical disinfectants, but we need to help those chemical disinfectants work by making sure that we actually clean everything beforehand. Dull or bent tools should absolutely be repaired or disposed of. So if you need to get cuticle nippers sharpened, there are some service providers online that you can send your nippers in to get them sharpened. Sometimes it's actually more expensive to get them sharpened than to just get a new set. But also if you have bent or damaged nippers, or you've bent a bit, or you've bent a cuticle pusher or something like that, we want to make sure that we dispose of those things or get them repaired, because using damaged equipment can actually cause issues like cutting, broken skin, causing excess undue vibration on the nail plate. If we're talking about bits with e-filing, we want to make sure that we're not tearing skin. We're actually trimming it very cleanly and very smoothly. So all of those things become very important. Do not use nail tools for anything other than nails. So if you have a cuticle pusher or a cuticle nipper that you are using on nails, do not use those same tools to pry off nail art, because if we dull or damage those tools and then we go to use them on skin, now we're actually causing some problems. So if you want to have a pair of nippers that you use to pry off crystals or 3D pieces for nail art, have your dedicated, I call them in quotations, crappy nippers, so that you can use those for things that have nothing to do with the nail plate or the skin. And then you can have your actual precise tools, just like a surgeon is not going to use their scalpel to eat with or to open envelopes. They're going to only use scalpels for surgery, and they're going to make sure those scalpels are precise for surgery. Same thing when it comes to our tools. We don't want to be using our tools for things beyond nails and skin, because we want to make sure that those tools are primed and extremely precise for the things that we're going to be using them for. Always follow manufacturer guidelines for any liquid disinfectants. And I always recommend work on hands before feet and be mindful of transferring ailments. So just like I said, if you've got one funky toenail that might have a fungal infection, or you're investigating further, work on that nail last, and don't use those same dirty tools. Like, don't touch, an infected nail and then use those same tools across a whole bunch of healthy nails. Same thing goes with hands before feet. I often find that feet are usually where fungal infections are more prevalent. So I always do, if I'm going to work on myself, for example, I always do my manicure first, and then I can use those same implements and same nail files on my feet, but I do not do the opposite. You can also use separate ones for each situation, so then it doesn't matter which service you're doing first. But even on clients, I used to have a lot of clients where they would get a manicure or a nail service from me first, and then they would get a pedicure. I always would use, obviously that nail file is not going to be completely worn out yet, so oftentimes I would do their nails first. I would use the same tools on their hands as on their feet, but I would always do their hands first and then use the same tools on their feet. Unless there is presence of an infection, and then I definitely would not do that. But in general, I find, like I said, that fungal infections tend to be more prevalent on toes, and we don't want to transfer those fungal infections inadvertently onto the hands. So I hope this video has helped you understand a little bit more about the ailments of the nail, which I like to call nailments. This is an extremely important part of understanding how to enjoy nail care safely, also understanding the responsibility we have as professionals when working on clients, and even as a DIYer at home if you're watching this, or if you're a client going to salons, understanding what to look out for as far as making sure tools are clean before they're used on you, making sure that people aren't reusing used nail files or pumice stones or any of that stuff. I have seen some salons that, of course, these materials are expensive, so a lot of salons will attempt to reuse things across multiple clients, and I really encourage you to be mindful of that, to be aware of that, and to be an advocate for your own nail care when you go to a nail salon, to make sure that they are using fresh, new, clean tools, new nail files, new buffers, new pumice stones on you, because you don't want to be inadvertently getting infections from other people. And same thing if you're just doing your own nails at home, make sure you are actually cleaning your tools. Again, I will be going over how to actually clean and maintain our tools in a future video, but I think understanding the common ailments that you can come across and the risks inherent in nail care if we aren't serious about it is a good stepping stone into all of this before we actually get into product application. So now you know all about anatomy and nailments, and then we can get into all of our future tutorials about how we actually work with equipment, how we actually apply nail products, and how we maintain them on our nails for future services and all of that good stuff. So I hope this lesson has been very helpful to you. Please feel free to leave comments below this video. Your feedback really helps me make my content better and better, and I'll see you guys in our next lesson. Bye.